On April 15th, 2019, I had just gotten home from school when one of my roommates got a notification that a nearby church was on fire. I remember thinking that it probably wouldn't be anywhere that I'd been before, but I really hoped it wasn't Sainte-Chapelle, a building seemingly made entirely of stained glass. As more news alerts sluggishly began to pop up on our phones, I could tell this was something historic, and convinced a small group of us to run down the street to catch the next bus. Our local bus route ran along the Seine, and I pulled up a stuttering live video feed on my phone. We watched the spire of Notre Dame collapse standing in the middle of the bus aisle, angling the screen so that the few bewildered tourists without any cell service could see. When public transport and bridges shut down, we kept walking along the river and stood witness on its banks until the structure was declared saved. This experience has stuck with me ever since. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Parisian-themed island of Mewseille for a spooky holiday special. My name is Cara, and I wish you all a very happy Halloween. Today I will be building my most ambitious area yet, combining two of the most iconic examples of French Gothic architecture to create a haunted cathedral. Small disclaimer here that I am not religious and am just creating something beautiful and good fun with full respect to the importance of the buildings that inspired me. I will also be releasing a few original custom codes later on this video if you'd like to follow along on your own island, though I will warn you that this cost about 1 million bells between infrastructure, moving buildings, and getting all the items, and it will take you between 3 and 10 in-game days at the very minimum. Unfortunately, I lost the very first few minutes of footage, which was just me staring blankly at the screen for half an hour trying to figure out spacing without anything built yet. Basically, I just terraformed a small point and then a long raised platform with 2 symmetrical waterways. The water is 5 by 6 squares, so the bridges are at maximum length with 2 extra squares to either side of the required width of 4 squares so that I can get the waterfalls as close as possible. This area is heavily inspired by Pont Neuf, a bridge that spans the point of an island in the Seine, which was a historic heart of Paris, which holds both Notre Dame and Sainte-Chapelle. The main spire you can see from the river is actually from Sainte-Chapelle, even though it looks just like Notre Dame's. For those of you who don't know it, Sainte-Chapelle is tucked away in the medieval palace on the island, so the exterior isn't easily visible, but it has some of the most beautiful stained glass I've ever seen, so I've designed the interior of the cathedral based on the royal chapel, and the facade is based on Notre Dame, since I didn't have room for 2 enormous churches on my island. Before terraforming too much, I laid out all of my simple panels to make sure there was enough space. This build used over 50 simple panels, which required over a week to accumulate. When using simple panels in multiple tiers, something I like to do is to paint a coordinating or identical design underneath each panel to create a smooth transition between each layer. One effect that I really enjoyed about the bare simple panels without any cliffs enclosing them was how they were visible from the sides, just like real stained glass would be. Doing it this way allowed me to keep the cathedral as narrow as physically possible, while still allowing for decorations and walking space. That extra decoration space allowed me to line the walls with golden candles, echoing the chandeliers and other candles found in these buildings in real life. The reason I went for wedding chairs rather than the benches is just that I usually saw wooden chairs in the cathedrals I visited as a tourist. After 2 days, both the brick bridges flanking the cathedral had been completed. As you can see, the beautiful statues look almost like a support on the bridges, like they have more than one arch. However, the towers are so low and will need some changes. Initially, I set the building down onto ground level so that the facade could have had more levels. But ultimately I decided that I disliked how difficult it was to see from a distance and wanted to add more height, which required a larger base, so the sunken facade was scrapped. It took a lot of trial and error, most of which I cut out to keep the video from dragging on for too long. Here's a few experiments with the height of the towers. It was difficult to get them both high enough and close enough together. One fact I kept in mind was that Notre Dame took 182 years to complete. So 3 days of building and rebuilding is practically nothing. As you can see from the choppy editing, I didn't want to show too much repetition or spend a lot of time showing you how to build something that I end up changing later. While this is a bit of a hassle to redo, placing custom designs on the ground goes a long way in making these towers look cohesive, just like with the stained glass. Bits of grass showing through is definitely a little strange looking, so I tried to minimize it wherever possible. I also was planning on having the staircase go down in the front of the building, but I moved it to be just inside the walls, which looks way more natural than I expected. The frozen archway was the perfect way to delineate the entrance and join together the two towers. I also made use of 2 frozen pillars to disguise the edges and to hide a few orange spotlights. Inside the chapel, I added a golden seat and a gold casket to create a dramatic centerpiece. I also used some Pisces lamps, and together with the candles, this space becomes so magical at nighttime. In landscaping the cathedral, I needed to provide context and scale. Since this is an island, I added the river to either side, as well as some trees, but capped the river with waterfalls rather than wasting space wrapping it all the way around the back. I went for a simple tree and shrub combo rather than flowers, which can look too big. The trees in this game, on the other hand, are way too small compared to your character's size, so they make the building look taller. The Valiant statue isn't authentic to anything, but it's beautiful and the square needed a centerpiece without hordes of tourists. Parisians usually leave cemeteries to the outskirts of the city, but this wouldn't be a Halloween build without a vaguely spooky graveyard, so I sunk all of my stone into building some Western-style graves, which I attempted to tuck away on a small plot of land to the left of the cathedral. One fun thing to look for if you ever visit Notre Dame in real life is the gravestone courtyard, which is on a street to the left of the cathedral. The ground is paved with medieval headstones right next to some of the most Instagrammed shops in Paris. Inside the building, I added some jack-o'-lanterns and a fortune-telling set as a cheeky Halloween touch. I also added tons of pumpkins outside in a more elegant color scheme, so the inside would be more of a surprise. After sitting on it for the entire build, I wanted to smooth the edges of the point down, and I added some more detail to the area to make it more lush. I always recommend giving a build time, because as you rework things, it gets so much better. My first idea is rarely as good as what I come up with later, especially after considering it for a while. The next day, I was able to add even more lanterns and spooky decorations, both inside and outside. The orange lanterns inside contrast so nicely with the purple stained glass. Later, I decided the hedges were too tall and opaque, so I replaced them with just spooky fencing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as promised, here is my code for the stained glass I designed in a few different colors. The green might need more work still, but I'm sure you can make something eerie with it. I hope you all have a safe and socially distanced Halloween, and as always, you can find me on all social media at mewseille if you'd like to share anything inspired by this video or just want to chat. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications to see more ambitious builds, and hopefully I'll see you again next time.